I mean business today. Got the backwards hat, got the cutoff on. It's a good thing doing a training plan like this because there's no other reason why I would choose to run outside in this heat on a Sunday. And I could do the treadmill, but I really like how the GPS watch the data that it gives me outdoors and the accuracy, and it motivates me more, it pushes me more. So as much as I thought I was gonna do the treadmill for today, I wanna do it outside. And so start of week 2, same amount of time running. It's gonna be 60 seconds running for a while, but I'm gonna start to whittle down on the amount of time walking. And eventually once it gets to, I have to look at it again, but once I get to 30 seconds of walking, then I start going up on the run time. So it's not for a while. So it gives my body the time to get used to and adjust to just running for a minute. But with less time walking and recovering, my heart rate won't have as much time to recover. So therefore it may impact my pace. So therefore, expectations, it's 8 rounds today, 60 run, 45-second walk. I'm gonna make the goal of somewhere between an 8-minute pace and a 7:30 pace. First run last week I did around 8, and then the third run, the second one outside, was a little under 7:30. So I'm gonna be happy with a 7:45 pace, knowing that there's less time to walk and recover, but knowing, good thing it's only 8 rounds instead of 10. So that's my plan. Sticking to it for now. We'll see how it goes. I'll see you in a little bit. Thoughts. So intervals are done. I'm about 3 minutes into the 12-minute walk afterwards, just to get my 26 minutes to continue the distance that I did for the post-surgical walk. So slowly increasing, so just making up the time for that. But the intervals today. So I gotta say, same amount of time running, although there were some times where the 60 seconds felt a lot longer than 60 seconds. And I will say in the beginning, the 45 seconds seemed like plenty of time to recover. It didn't seem bad, but then of course, that's how it's supposed to go. As time goes on, it starts to get more challenging. We're starting to deplete. So, but overall, I think I hit my goal. Came out of the gates a little bit too strong. And that's what I think. I'm a big fan of not always analyzing in the moment, but like afterwards and reflecting. And so like after I do a minute run, I don't know my pace during it. Afterwards, it will buzz and it'll tell me how far I went at my pace. And that's where I'll kind of make adjustments of how hard did I exert, pull back a little bit, go up a little bit more. And that's one of the most important skills that I hope all of you can get and to learn, which I know you can, is having gears, not just I run or I walk. When I run, what are different variations of how hard I'm running? What are my paces? How long can I hold paces? Can I run at a certain speed and my heart rate can actually lower and recover? What pace can I hold for how X amount of time? What pace can I know if I sustain that for a period of time that I'm gonna have to walk afterwards? So you get to just learn your body, but I'm a big fan of doing it after, not immediately during. That's just me. Some of you might find it more beneficial to do it in the moment, but I always do better thinking, visualizing things on more of like a big term, zoom out perspective, more logic, not in the moment, and let emotions get the best. But I feel good about it. Yes, it was hot. Yes, it was more hilly. I had one interval where it was like 8, maybe 20 or 8:30 something. And that kind of motivated me to, well, I'm not gonna let that happen again. And I know it was going up a hill, so there was a reason for it, but it did motivate and push me to go a little bit harder. And I gotta say, it's nice too, having just a goal of mine. I was trying to be faster than 8, but not necessarily faster than 7:30. So somewhere between 7:30 and an 8-minute pace. And that was really nice having that. And that's why I really like having this plan and strategy. And I always, when I plan and strategize my life, I realize how much better everything is and how much less anxiety provoking, and just, here's what I gotta do, and you do it. Same with having a plan with running. It's like duh, but it just makes it so much better, so much easier. You just know what you gotta do. You don't feel bad for not doing more. You don't do less because you know what you gotta do. And for me, it's just, I operate better. I'm not great at creating the plans all the time. I'm good at following them. But if I do like this, take the time to actually plan something, like I did with this whole return to run, I'm always grateful that I did. So for me, it's all about making things as easy as possible, reducing friction, just plug and play. The less barriers, the better. So that's a little tangent for myself. A reminder when I watch this later. But yeah, I feel good about it. I feel like it was the appropriate amount of challenge. I pushed myself. I feel like I got my goal. It was outside, which is what I was happy about doing. And overall, I think it will be good. I think I'll be happy when I look at the stats later. And then today's Sunday. Next run will be on Wednesday, so I have a couple days to recover. And then I'll hit it again, hopefully outside, weather permitting. And we'll go from there. But overall, good day. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you enjoyed me releasing this last week. And yeah, it's nice to get into the rhythm of doing this, but appreciate you. I'll catch you guys later. Let's look at today's stats chat. So here I'm going to look at two things. One, the master template, and really with this, just looking for signs of progress, things to keep me moving, or where maybe I need to focus. And then the chart, looking at both the pace and the heart rate are overlaid on top of each other. So first with the template, if we compare it to a week ago, where it was the same amount of time total running, 8 minutes, even though the intervals were different, this week there was 15 seconds less of walking, we can see that the pace was faster, 21 seconds faster. So that's a win. We'll take that. Now let's look at the chart. When it comes to the pace, what we're looking for is both consistency and is it increasing over time. If we're seeing it not consistent with the peaks, the valleys, then that tells me I need to work more on my pacing. If we're looking at it decrease in the horizontal axis, that tells me I'm probably coming out too strong in the beginning. Ideally, we would like to be as consistent as possible with a slight increase over time, meaning getting faster with each interval. So you can see here it was pretty consistent. Per usual, it came out of the gates a little bit too strong in the beginning for the first 3 intervals. And then I started to hit my groove. 4 through 8 were slowly, progressively getting faster. Now with the heart rate response, a couple of things we're looking for here. Again, each interval individually, but also from start to finish of the entire workout. So with the heart rate, ideally, what's the rise? Ideally, if we have a slower rise, a slower slope, that tells me my heart rate is taking a little bit longer to elevate. Good sign. The fast fall on the other side of the mountain, ideally we want that to be a little bit of faster slope. That tells me when I pull back, when I recover, a faster recovery is a great sign of improved cardiovascular function. So we can see here pretty much that does describe that. We see the slower slope on the way up, a little bit faster on the way down. We see, compare the first interval to the last, they should not be the same. We should see this steady increase in its entirety over time. On the other end of the spectrum, if it was peaking in the beginning, then we tend to redline. And once you redline, it's really hard to get out of that. So it all comes down to that pacing and energy exertion. So we'll call today a win. I feel pretty good about it. We'll do this again next time. What in the deja vu? Happy Wednesday. Seems like it was just a week ago. You and I were here in the car driving to the apartment gym to do our run for the day. Similar reasons as last time, choosing treadmill. A little less impact, a little more cushioning of the treadmill deck. 95 degrees, humid here. There is, where I live is right by a Trump rally. So it's kind of nuts out there with traffic, people. So I'm just gonna do it on the treadmill. I'm gonna keep it simple today. My goal, so I was happy that last run I was between the 7:30 and the 8 minute for outdoors. A week ago, when I did 1-to-1, minute run, minute walk for 9 rounds, I did 8 miles per hour or a 7:30 pace. I will feel happy and successful if I can do 9 rounds of 60 seconds of running between a 7 and a 7:30, and then walk for 45 seconds. I will feel good about that. So I will report in later. Whew. Success. Can you imagine how sweaty I'd be if I ran outside? I talked about this before, but there's so many correlations with life and strategies for life and running and exercise. Like, for example, I try to not assess anything immediately, like right in the moment. For example, like first round, how does it go? How do I feel? Try not to dictate how I think the entirety of the run is going to be based off of my first interval effort. So today, 9 rounds, and I talked about my strategy was to start somewhere between a 7 and a 7:30 pace. So I started at 8.2 miles per hour, which I'll put whatever the conversion is for that for the pace. I think it was like 7:19 or something like that. But I did the first round. I was like, this is good. This is almost too easy. So I do it again. And so by the third one, I'm like, okay, how am I feeling? I have that feeling where I can kind of zone out. And if I can zone out and not think about what I'm doing and not thinking about when is this over, I might not be pushing myself hard enough. So that was the feeling that I was having during. So then I want to look at the heart rate response. I know for me, when I am hit 170 above is where I'm like, okay, I can't hold this much longer. I'm really uncomfortable. Versus like 160 to 170 beats per minute, that's where I'm pretty sufficiently challenged. I feel good, but I can maintain that for a while. Under 160, I'm in an active recovery, or I'm not really pushing myself, so I should push harder. So my thought was, I was in the high 150s, I believe, or low 160s after round 3. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to break this up into thirds, trimesters, if you will. First, second, and third. So the first 3, I did 8.2 miles per hour. Again, felt challenged, but I don't feel like I was challenged enough. And so this is where this is good for me to have guidelines, because my instincts are just to go crazy and just to go boost it way up too early. And so this keeps me kind of honest. So I went up from 8.2 miles per hour to 8.4 miles per hour. And I was like, I'll do that for 3 rounds, reassess, but ideally then the third and final, round 7, 8, and 9, go up to 8.6 miles per hour, which is just under a 7. And so it felt good. I felt like I should be incrementally challenging more. I should see the change in my heart rate response. I should see the change in my perception of how I'm doing, and I'll be able to superimpose the actual data of the trend of the heart rate. But it was starting to go up, 165 or so. And again, when I go down to that walking, not making any irrational decisions. Like I used to say this when I used to coach Orange Theory on the microphone. Don't make any decisions right after you come out of an effort. You're not yourself. Your blood's not in your brain. It's you're trying to get to the rest of your body, to your legs. Don't make any irrational, quick decisions. Feel it out. Maybe halfway through, once you kind of settle a little bit, halfway through the 45 seconds or whatever the recovery is, then ask yourself, okay, how did that go? Being truthful with myself. Am I challenging myself enough, or am I playing easy street? And ideally, we should be challenging a little bit more each time, or that our last effort, it's not giving absolutely everything there is to give, but it should be more and more. So I did that. The second, 3 rounds was 8.4. And then the final 3 was 8.6. And I was starting to get closer towards that 170. So I felt like I was sufficiently physiologically challenged too, that I was getting over 170. And I guess the big picture of this is I shouldn't be having that response of 170 where I know my red line is early on. And I'd rather it be this kind of negative splits where you've heard where people get slightly faster as they go, instead of vice versa of getting slower. So having these different gears, like I've talked about before, but just getting to know your body. And that's one thing I think the treadmill is really helpful for, is being precise with your speed, seeing your heart rate response, be able to zone out. You can control the temperature, you can control the inclines, and just have some better control over the task at hand. So I might go into a little bit more in the deep dive later, but I think that's all that I wanted to cover with that. I think that's it. If I think of something later, I'll add it in here. Stats chat for today, 9 rounds. Let's compare this to last week, where it was on a treadmill as well, 9 rounds as well, but the different ratios of 15 seconds less of walking, so less time to recover. So we look at the chart, 7:30 to a 7:09 average pace. That was my goal, was to see could I do it faster than last week. And I talked before about splitting up into thirds and progressively getting faster each time. And the other thing is, let's look at the chart, the pace and the heart rate chart. This is where the pace, it should be extremely consistent. And remember, the data isn't super accurate on this because the watch isn't using GPS, but I'm just remembering what I put in to be consistent with it. But I like this approach that I've been taking, not on purpose, of doing treadmills every Wednesday, because it does really offer the opportunity to work on your pacing. Set the speed and ask yourself, what's the least amount of exertion, the least amount of energy that I can exert, but still stay on this treadmill belt? So the pacing consistently for every 3 and then got faster. And then the heart rate, again, start looking at the first heart rate peak and the last. Slowly increasing, as we should expect. We see the slower rise, the faster falls. And this is something with time I hope to continue to see: slower rises, faster falls when it comes to the peaks and the valleys. So overall, today was a good day. Faster pace, indoors on the treadmill, yes, flat surface, but compared to the last week, it was a win. Oh, how embarrassing. Want to hit? I've had asthma since I was 7. Honestly, it doesn't really bother me too often, except if my allergies are bad. And sometimes with outside, but for the most part, I don't let it bother me. I always run with an inhaler on me. What did he say we finish out week 2? Today I'm going to think of a little gratitude of the 45 seconds of walking. I'm going to soak up every minute of it or second of it, because next week it drops down to 30 seconds. Whew. So my goal for today, outside, 10 rounds, minute running, 45 seconds of walking. I'm going to shoot for a 7:30 pace. I believe on the first run of the week for 8 rounds, I was at a 7:37, I want to say. So adding 2 more rounds, try to have a little bit of a faster pace. That's the goal. And I wanted to do it outside again so I could see those stats. But I'll check in a little bit afterwards. I also have my shoes of the spring-loaded, they are, the super shoes. I'll talk a little bit more of those on my post-run walk and share some thoughts, but let's do it. Success. I think, at least subjectively, I feel good. I feel like I got it. There was a lot of the intervals where I was way below 7:30, a few that I was above, and I kept just trying to pace myself out. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you can pace yourself out, because it takes time to get to know how fast you're moving and your effort, how it matches up. So the 3 F's. When it comes to changing speed, whether running faster, you increase the 3 F's. Whether running slower, you decrease the 3 F's. They are, you hit the ground with more force, you push the ground back further, and you increase your frequency. So on the other end of the spectrum, if you want to slow down and try to pace yourself, you don't push the ground as hard back, you don't push the ground as far back distance-wise, and you reduce your frequency, your cadence. If that doesn't sit well for you, imagine that canoe analogy. If you were in a canoe right now and I said, let's go, you wouldn't think twice. And I wanted to get to the point where, same with running, you don't think twice, you just do it efficiently. If you want to go faster, you put the paddle in the water, you push back with more force, harder, you put your stroke back even further, distance behind you, like the leg with running, and you repeat that at a higher frequency. So learning how to adjust and trying to ask yourself, what's the least amount of energy or exertion I can get away with without sacrificing speed? So I'm getting there. I wasn't quite yet able to know exactly what the average pace was. It'll take some time. I used to be able to do that, but as I'm still acclimating, getting adjusted to my body. Some things work in my favor this run. Temperature. It's only like maybe 85 right now. It's been raining a lot here, and it's finally sunny, but a little bit cooler. That helped. Had albuterol coursing through my veins. It's a vasodilator just to open things up. Arguably, I was living with a little bit more of a restricted or constricted airway, so this just opens it up to more normal size. I had enough calories for the day. Some of my runs I've been doing at a caloric deficit, which isn't great for performance. Good for weight loss and burning fat, but not necessarily for performance. But today I had fuel in me, and then who knows about the shoes. I do feel like these shoes offer an advantage. They're lighter, and so if you're not familiar with the kind of super shoes concept, there's a carbon fiber plate in the bottom of the shoe, where if you put the shoe on the ground and you compress it and you release, it shoots up. So therefore, the thought process is, the physics is, it stores potential energy, which you put in, you get more return off of the ground and with the shoe. So here's my thoughts on these. If you're running on a treadmill on a flat surface, not super helpful. They're kind of awkward. I try to teach on a flat road how we run forward on a flat road, how we propel is using the tush, the hamstrings, the hip, not using your calves, not using your quads. So these kind of promote using your calves. They kind of rock down. So on a flat surface, they do feel kind of awkward, and they do promote more of the bounding or the going up. But where I do find them very helpful is hills. You guessed it, going up hills. Because going up hills, we're still using the tush, the hamstrings at the hip, but now because our body is ascending higher, now we do need to push downwards and back through the ground, down and back, using the calves and the quads. So I do feel like the shoes are very helpful with running uphill. And then let's talk quickly about downhill. How I see and use downhills to my advantage is, I think, active recovery. Active recovery. I see a downwards hill and I think, okay, I'm gonna let the hill do the work. I'm gonna let my body be as relaxed as possible. Let the hill momentum, gravity propel me down. Try to get my heart rate to lower into more reasonable range, and not try to speed up and not try to slow down. So that's my best advice for downhills, is let the hill do the work, turn off the tush, be a little bit more relaxed. We'll see what the stats chat later comparatively today versus the other days of the week, but I feel really good. I feel really good. I know I say that a million times, but I'm just so grateful to be running again. I feel like I've got this good system down of how to share this, how to keep me accountable, how to push me, and I've got a lot of good feedback from you all, and I hope that you guys join me. I really do. So thanks for joining me this week. I have some things planned as far as sprinkling in. I don't know if it's gonna be this week or next week, but I'm going to video myself running again, check my mechanics, just see, is my posture changed at all, make sure I still have the efficient mechanics since my fusion. And so I'll kind of walk you through that process of how we video, how we set it up, how we analyze, and then I may go live on Sunday. And I think I might start posting these on Saturday, because today, Friday, is the third run of the week, and that gives me Sunday to be a little more open to lives or whatever. So I think I'm gonna start posting these every Saturday. So stay tuned for that, be on the lookout for that. But overall, really good week. Very grateful for you all, grateful for running. I'll catch you guys later. Last run, best run. We'll start off with the chart. Two things to compare it to. Let's compare it to 1 week ago of 10 rounds outdoors. And let's compare this to the first run of this week with 8 rounds. Seeing, adding 2 more rounds, what does this change? How does this affect it? So comparing to last week, the average pace was 7:14 minutes per mile versus 7:27 last week. And if we look at the 10 rounds versus 8 rounds, 1 beat less per minute for heart rate response. Not a lot, not super significant, but again, we're being positive, we're being optimistic to see progress. So let's look at the pace and the heart rate chart. First with the pace, you can see I was a little bit all over the place today. First 3 were somewhat consistent, but then we have a little bit higher peaks, then it goes down, up, down, up, down. So this is something I really need to work on, is my pacing. And again, this will come with time of knowing my exertion, how fast I'm going, but working on being a little bit more consistent. So that's something to check mark to work on, is my consistency of the pacing. The good news is, though, that I ended faster than I started. That's always a goal. And let's look at the heart rate response. Again, looking at the red. Peaks, valleys. How high does it go? How quickly does it go up? And how fast does it fall down? So you can see that some of these in the beginning were a little bit sharper. The slope was a little bit faster to rise. So the good news with the heart rate response is it was slowly increasing throughout, but also again, it wasn't consistent. And we should see that with the pacing. Because ultimately what we don't want when you hit the wall, how you know you hit the wall, is you'll see that there's a major difference between your pace and your heart rate. You'll see your heart rate response, that red line, go really high, and you'll see that the pace, the blue, starts to fall. So at least we're seeing a pretty consistent rise and fall of both pace and heart rate response here. But this is just reminding me of something I need to continue to work on, is that pacing, and the heart rate is just a response of my energy exertion. It's a dial. It gives me some insight, a gauge as to how I'm doing. But overall, win. Really happy this week is in the books. I really look forward to next week and doing this again. I really hope and encourage you to follow along. Again, don't make me do this by myself. Let's do this together. And I will see you next week.